Hello and welcome to In the Making, a series of conversations from North Bennett Street School where we connect with a range of new voices, fields, and perspectives. Before we get into our conversation, we want to thank the many supporters that make our programs possible, including the Massachusetts Cultural Council. Thanks for joining us, everyone. My name is Kristen Odell. I'm an NBSS staff member and host of In the Making. This sixth season of In the Making has focused entirely on crafting a business. Since January, we've spoken with a range of NBSS alumni and community members to hear first-person accounts of what it's really like to start a business of the types we train you for here at NBSS. Today is our final episode in the series, and we're joined by NBSS graduates Mitchel Gundrum and Kolin Schmidt, graduates of bookbinding and cabinet and furniture making programs in 2021, same year.
Good year.
Good year.
Good, great year. They're both continued members of our community through community education, winter market, and a variety of other NBSS channels. While you're both more recent graduates and relatively newer in your respective fields, for this specific topic, pricing goods and services, I specifically wanted the perspective of those who are assessing pricing structures in our current moment. Overall costs of living and simply existing, combined with wage stagnation and the reality that many of us work in the underfunded creative sector, all shape how we relate to money, pricing, and the value of our goods and services. And so it's key for us to discuss pricing as it relates to those things in this current moment. With that, thank you both for sharing your perspectives with us today.
Delighted to be here.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks for
delighted
having
that
us.
you're here with us. So let's start with the straightforward question. Do you each sell both goods and services? And what do those look like for you? And whichever wants to go first, how about it?
I do. I sell both goods and services. When it comes to goods, it's things like I sell quite a few small boxes throughout the year at various markets, this winter market being a big one. I also take private commissions for larger pieces or large runs of pieces perhaps. And then when it comes to services, I'm a teacher. I teach here at the school as well as a variety of schools throughout New England and in the East. And I also offer drafting services as I was a professional drafts person before I came to the school here. So that's still a revenue source for me.
Mm-hmm.
Very similar. I've got tools that I make for bookbinding, Delrin, bone, wood, some occasional bindings, some decorated papers on the product side, but then from the services side, I really enjoy teaching. I offer up commissions of sort of larger book repair and conservation projects. I guess also important to note that I also work at an institution, so that is informing a lot of kind of my side hustle side of this as well. An important thing to keep in mind as a creative of any kind.
Yes, thank you for saying that. This series started off with a conversation around building a livelihood that works for you. Part of that being taking on working in a more institutional environment to get all the bennies and the steadiness, and having the other more flex space for your creative practice. So thanks for bringing that up. I'm going to take a sidebar here for a second because I want to note that 6 years ago, the very first version of In the Making was born, and all of us were housebound, and the two of you virtually let me into your homes. You were in the first iteration of In the Making. Mitch, you shared your paper making in your apartment, and Kolin, you showed us a shape horse that you built to whittle down logs you found in the Arboretum, thank you, to make spoons. And so now we're full circle here. And I think that was 6 years ago. I think those things that you were making in that sort of a bit of a crisis moment, they have woven themselves into this conversation of pricing goods and services.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, do you divide your offerings into steady passive income products and big ticket or one-off jobs? So thinking of two pots here, like steady Eddie, bread and butter, and then like the one-off commissions, that kind of situation. Do you see your business as separated in that way?
I would say I have smaller projects, but everything is kind of handmade to order. I don't necessarily have a large stockpile of materials that I can just send out as an order comes in. So everything is very much informed by the need, and I feel very engaged with I would not call it passive, I suppose.
I wonder, would you, this does not diminish working in an institutional setting whatsoever, but in a way, that kind of acts as the passive,
Yeah.
You're fully engaged in using all of your skill set, but that's like
point.
steady Eddie.
Yeah, that's my 8 to 5, and then when I come back, my little projects at home at my workbench. Just the more, I guess, the bigger projects. But yeah, that's a great point.
What about you?
I do. I have a series of objects that I am always making throughout the year, and not just making the objects, but making parts and pieces for that I'm able to use in classes throughout the year, and then towards the end of the year I'm able to actually produce those objects, take to market, and sell them kind of in a retail fashion. And then I'm always looking for larger one-off commissions, try to get a few of those every year to help boost the income, as well as things like drafting services. That to me feels like a rarer but a much larger individualistic form of income for me. And all of those things take on different pricing structures when it comes to how I price them out, how I charge for them.
When you're talking about taking that time to build the market product, and let's just say we're defining your market product are your shaker boxes, and that's kind of like where your focus is now, right?
Yep.
Are you and you're sort of batch producing those because that's the most cost efficient way to do it, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And I'm sure that all weighs into your pricing structure.
Absolutely. There's even things I'll do differently when I make them in a batch form versus if somebody commissions me to make 5 of them. While most of the procedure is the same, on that smaller scale I am able to do a few things a little differently, which then again affects the pricing structure and what I would charge for those things. I want you to answer this question next, because very perfect for the shaker boxes as an example. This is a bit of a cart before the horse question. Did you build a product based on its ease of pricing and saleability, or or did you start with a product that you loved and adjust from there, modified, simplified, make it efficient? So what was first? I absolutely just started making a product that I really loved. And I didn't even think of it as a product at the time. I just thought of it as an object that I loved.
We all love them.
Thank you.
So beautiful.
I just really fell in love with them visually. I learned how to make them in the evenings here at the school and made myself a batch. And it wasn't until years later I was teaching a class here at the school on how to make those objects that I think it was you, Kristen, who came down to me one time and said, hey, these should be for sale somewhere, which I think kind of sparked the idea in my mind. And that's what actually shifted my focus towards how could I produce these on a level that would be reasonable to sell. If I was still making them the exact same way I was making those first few, I'd lose my shorts. But then once I had that focus of these are a product, these are something that are sellable, something that folks out there in the world might want, I shifted my focus and I started looking at them with much more of a lens towards pricing, production.
Can we sit there for a minute?
Sure.
Can you give us an example of something that's very understandable for us here that you shifted to make it an economical venture?
Things like producing en masse, where some of the parts I would, if I'm just producing a small run of them, I would make each part individually to give each part an extra level of care with a lens towards aesthetic. Maybe this part looks a little nicer if I skew the orientation of it just slightly, or maybe when I'm carving a certain detail on them, that carving could use just an extra minute or two of attention and effort. As soon as I started shifting my focus towards attention, now I'm producing parts on a much larger scale. I'm producing 20 parts at a time as opposed to one. And so I have to make a few concessions. I have to start to say, well, maybe this isn't exactly aesthetically what I was looking for in this object, but I will make that concession. In turn, I'm able to produce a lot of them. Maybe the carvings happen a little bit faster. They're things that maybe to a maker's eye or a professional's eye they would pick up. To a lot of folks, it is still a lovely, beautiful object, and they didn't lose quality enough to upset me in the making process.
I mean, you're also the object itself. You're sticking within the standards of what they are supposed to look like. I mean, I'm not saying that correctly, but I think you cutting corners for efficiency's sake.
Yeah.
And cutting corners is also not the right way to put it, but
Because the boxes are round.
exactly.
No corners on those boxes. There are. I produce these boxes at a very small scale production level, and I know there are people in the world producing them on a large scale production level. And from the boxes that I produce, I'm going to make one box. I'm going to make it in a class with students, and then my small scale production level, and then a large scale production level. There are very clearly differences in all of those things, even though when it comes to the procedure, we're all pretty much making the same thing with a lot of the same ideas and concepts and tooling. But it's in that production that we're all making those decisions all the way along the way. What's worth giving up?
Yeah. Do you feel like you found the sweet spot for pricing? Because they do sell.
They do sell, which I think in and of itself might be an indication that I haven't found the sweet spot in pricing. Because maybe I'm missing out on a lot. I'm very happy right now with where I have found them as far as pricing, but something that is I'm never putting down, I'm never letting out of my mind, is these prices are never concrete. These prices are never, ever set. Every single time I do a run of these, I am re-evaluating the pricing structure. Every single time, I have a whole bunch of variables all throughout the production process that I am calculating, I'm keeping track of. I don't ever want to make an object and when I got to the end of the making say, okay, now how much does this cost? This should be an equation that's being built the entire time. I just brought, and you won't be able to see it on camera, but there's just a bunch of chicken scratch on this page. This is a page that is produced every single time I do a run of boxes, and this is just one step of the box making process. But all the information that I build up over time on this sheet eventually informs that final price.
Yep. And we'll get into that again in a few minutes about sort of your recipes. Mitchel, I want to ask you the question, the same cart before horse question. With let's say your folders, your tools, your Delrin tools. Did you build some of those products based on ease of pricing and saleability, or did you start with something you loved and adjust it from there?
It was 100% me making a tool for myself based on a gap that I saw. So we took a workshop on some of this tool making here, and I saw room for improvement based on my, the way my hands move, the way my body moves, the gaps I wanted to fill in, and made a tool that worked for me, and it ended up beautiful to me, and that informed what the product was. Yeah, saleability didn't really, it was very much the same. I saw an object that was beautiful, and yeah, making a product didn't really come into it until it was a thing that I enjoyed making and I enjoyed having, and I saw other conservators that I work with every day using something air sets, and I offered to make them one of mine, and yeah.
Would you, what makes your tools unique? Because there are other students making Delrin tools. Like, what's your pitch to yours?
Ooh, the pitch. Hearing Kolin talk just about finding your niche and your way of working. I do make all of these tools by hand to order, and I'm really not trying to hit like a common denominator. I make a tool that I like, that I'm proud of, and I tout it and use it, and hopefully other people who are looking for a similar tool know what they're looking for and see the appeal. I put a lot of love into it. I hope that comes through.
That's good.
I'm really not trying to. I'm really not even trying to pitch them in so much as, every time it leaves my hands, I'm like, I'm glad another one of these is out there. So.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's a great pitch. Thank you. This kind of is an interesting two-part combined question in response to both of your affections for your product. When do you, so you make certain concessions to make something more economically viable, you shorthand some things even though you're not cutting down on quality, just it's part of production. Where do you curb the obsessive details that you're both trained in? You're trained to sink into the details. Where do you curb those to just say, okay, this one's good for the price point, this is great, I'm good, we're golden, let's put it out there. And at the same time, do you still think of your products as objects you love, or has something flipped there and it's this is now a bread and butter thing? I
need to pitch the fact that I work at an institution and have a separate income coming in, and this is something that I do because I love to do it, the making. And I want to feel like what comes off of my bench is a beautiful thing. And I heard somebody once say that they were trying to, not necessarily, you're making a product for a particular, clientele, and maybe my folders aren't sold for $5 on Amazon. There are perfectly viable tools for $5 on Amazon that somebody starting out needs to buy. I bought a starter kit before I came to North Bennett Street School, and it serves a particular purpose. And this is a very specific tool that sells for $45. This one little piece of plastic that I spend 4 hours shaping, that only makes sense to somebody who's looking for that very particular thing. So I try not to beat myself up about the fact that I spent 4 hours making it, because that's informed by, the money that I spent to come to this program, the training that I've had, the honing in on a tool that I think fits a very particular notch. Mm-hmm. And so whether or not it's perfect for what I'm trying to accomplish. And so that's where I try to stay happy with that. Yeah. And that's what marks, okay, it's good enough for me. Mm-hmm.
That's good.
The second part of your question is easier to answer than the first. For me, I still love the objects. I love them so much. A quote that I think of a lot, John Prine once said, you better write songs that you like singing, because you might accidentally write a hit. And I'm a big believer in that if you're not making objects that you love making, you got to find a different object to make, because you might accidentally turn it into a bread and butter thing, and you might have to make a lot of these things. And so for that reason, yes, I absolutely adore making these objects. And I am very much fortunate that I have other streams of income, the teaching, the drafting, the commission work, that I don't need to rely as heavily on these objects. These objects absolutely they are a part of my yearly income. If I didn't have them, I would have to find another revenue stream. But they are not so big of one that it is make or break for me. And if that was the case, then I might start to make more concessions or changes based on the first part of your question, which was kind of where do you make those decisions? How do you make those decisions? And so for me, that goes back to, I know what it would take for me to do as grand a job as I can do. I have that information. I know the amount of time that would take. And so it's easier for me to look at the clock or whatever other factors I'm tying into my purchasing and be very, very picky and selective with taking off one or two things here and there and still ending up with a pretty grand object that I love.
Thank you. It's really good stuff right there. Thank you. From both of you.
It's mostly John Prine.
Pricing goods, to me, seems much simpler than pricing your time for services. Is that true? And what's your approach, and how did you develop your approach?
I find it a lot easier to track my time actually than to consider all of the, the different levels of bringing in your raw materials and holding on to a stock of materials and shipping and the way those things might change, and if you have to go into retail or wholesale, things like this. I know how much time I'm spending and how much time I'm spending on average. I think we might get to it a little bit later, but big thing that Jeff suggested to us here very early on was record how long things take, because the way you make more money is to get better at what you're doing and to be able to make more of them in the same amount of time. Especially when you are trying to meet a quality level, you're not going to diminish your quality, you're going to make more of a certain quality in a given amount of time, and that's how you make more money. So for me, knowing how long things take as a service, this reback is going to take approximately 4 hours versus this resewing is going to take 12. That's a little bit easier for me, and I feel more comfortable saying, listen, there's simply no way to do this job correctly in less time. And once I set an hourly rate based on, what's sustainable, it's pretty easy for me to price that service.
Mm-hmm. This is so key. I'm so glad that you said this, is the importance of timing, clocking how long it takes you to do a service or an act of like something that you're selling, as well as, or in concert with, if you're making product, to in that moment, not after the fact like you do, or like you don't do, like you make clear not to do, is you bought a sheet of paper for X dollars, how much you're using for this object, note it on the paper, like track every little piece and your time. It's so important, and we forget to do it all the time. Yeah,
but it's extremely helpful, because then when that project comes around where you haven't done it before, but there are these little pieces that make sense. You don't know how long an addition of 200 slightly different boxes are going to be, but you have these other small data points where you can hopefully not shoot yourself in the foot too much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, I do find pricing for services is easier, because I am able to shift a little more towards, what does it cost for me to live for 2 weeks? What does it cost for me to live for a month? How much of these 2 weeks or this month is this service going to take up? There we go. There's my price. And sure, there's more dynamics to that, but that generally is kind of how I lean towards pricing a service. When it comes to pricing goods, there are so many pricing models. So many, and within all of them there's a variety of factors. When I first started pricing these boxes, I guessed. I took a wild guess at my first market, and boy did they all sell fast. And I thought, well, that probably wasn't right.
Also, let's pause there. That's a really good lesson to learn. If they're gone in the first 20 minutes, something's wrong.
Yeah, something's wrong. So what I started doing after that was I started thinking about the difficulty to build. And so boxes that are extremely small are extremely challenging to build. Then they get a little easier to build, and then they start getting harder to build again. And so I'm factoring challenge of building. I started looking for comps. I started looking for other people making similar objects. What are they selling for? I started looking for people maybe not making the same object, but something in the same realm. Also with comps, I started looking at people selling objects at the same places I was selling objects. Mm-hmm. What are their price points? Are they having success selling? Or are they not having success selling? Something like that could help you decide, maybe this isn't the place for me to sell these objects.
Right.
I started talking to my peers, not just in the furniture or woodworking world. I started talking to jewelers and bookbinders and trying to understand their pricing structures. And then the biggest one is always learning from the last time I did this. And so I'm collecting every bit of data that I can, letting that inform this time as well as all the times after this.
Is it scribbled on notepads like it would be in my life, or do you input this into a system?
It's primarily scribbled on notepads. I'm working on it. I'm really trying to build up a bit more robust
We had a great
system.
program on collateral storage, if you'd
Yes.
like, would like to watch that one.
Yes, but yes, right now it's a lot of scratches.
Yeah. Which is also really important, like the fact when you write something down, it's being embedded into your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that's important. So I was way off the mark with that because I assumed that pricing goods was simpler than services, but
I don't find it to be.
yeah. I mean, with so many materials that you all are working with and those fluctuations, of course it's not. Speaking of materials, this is probably going to come about in this next question. What is the most common recurring hurdle you face in maintaining pricing structure across your product catalog? And how do you navigate those challenges as they arise?
Can't charge enough. It's a kind of a bummer of the reality of a lot of what we do, especially people in this space, in these small maker spaces and creative spaces. But the reality is, to truly charge your worth for making an object, it is seldom a possibility nowadays. And so it is taking into account as many things as you can, like your overhead, your material cost. Do you want to retire? Do you not care to retire? Does your car need an oil change this month? The challenge for me is trying to keep as big a vision as I can of myself, of my future, even if it's the next 2 weeks, the next month, or 40 years down the road, keeping all of that in perspective, and then pricing as best as I can, knowing I can't really price with these costs, or they just won't sell. You know, maybe you'll get couples to sell that way, but it's just, I've never found it to be realistic.
Same. I remember being here second year, somebody approached me about cloth reback, a cookbook repair, and I think I quoted it at like $150, 4 hours. I thought that was reasonable, and they came back and said, I didn't want this to be priced like the Cadillac, I just wanted the Chevy. And I thought I was being pretty fair given, you know, the quality of the work that I knew I could accomplish. But that's, you know, there's still that gap between what I know I can do and what the person is expecting to pay based on, you know, the way craft is portrayed. And I had to make a decision about whether it was more important for me to slash my price in half to get that gig, or to feel like I was maintaining a different type of business, basically, which is ultimately what I did. And then I got a different job later on that was about the same, and people don't flinch. So I feel like that's part of maintaining a business too, is knowing, you know, trying to level out that best possible price, but also deciding like there's a line at which this is the work that I want to do. I could make more, I could do more business, but that's not necessarily the business that I want to do. And that just comes down to kind of your personal working habits and kind of your goals for the future. So that was when you were a student here. Has that mentality changed for you since then? I mean, you have the confidence and comfort of your full-time, and that kind of gives you the squishiness to say, nope, this is my price point, that's just what it is. But I also think I've developed that brand and that community. You know, I've
to warrant that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have set a price point, and the people with whom I've worked before talk to other people, and you know, the community that I'm in, working at an institution, they have their kind of private people, and so insisting on a certain level of quality of my work and price point has definitely made it easier for me, confidence-wise, to continue insisting on that. But also I think I've stepped a little bit further into that particular pool of people who are interested in that product.
Yeah. Everybody's in a different financial situation. Everybody's going to take jobs for whatever reason their circumstances are telling them in that moment. And there's some people in this community who are just hard and true. No, this is your price. You don't negotiate. That's what your value is, and it's different for everybody, obviously. That train of thought isn't going anywhere. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
But then sometimes there's a job that I really, really want to do, and it's not about the money. And I really want to do that particular job, or it's a friend making me a bookcase and me fixing their book. That's
This is a true story.
That's why I came to a craft school, to learn to do what I do, not to set up a business. It's because I enjoy that work. And if I can facilitate that connection as well, then that's where the value is for me. So, yeah.
I coming up with that question, I was assuming you both were going to say, well, the ebb and flow of cost of materials really screw me every year, but no. You had a lot more to say about that one. Okay, how and from whom did you learn the most about where to start when pricing your goods or services? A person, an environment, your peers, or has it been just trial and error this whole time?
It's my instructor in the bookbinding program, Jeff.
Shout out to Jeff.
Shout out to Jeff. Extremely important. I resisted the whole way of, got to write down how long that took. You got to record how long it takes every time you do it, because it's going to end. Jeff was right. It's, as it turns out, people who have done this for their whole lives have some insight into how to make it sustainable. So yeah, trust your mentors, trust your peers, like you were saying. Kind of check in with the people around you who are making this work and who you admire. It's definitely coming from multiple sources, but yeah, I think it's maybe less direct, other than that example, and more so just continuing to see that gap of the craftsperson you want to be, the product you want to make, and trying to find the context around that, and slowly drawing yourself into those spaces.
Yeah, very similar. The people who taught me, instructors or mentors of any kind throughout the years, those are the places I would first look. But then for me now, it is primarily community. It is primarily the people around me. They don't even have to be working in wood. They can be working in glass or metal or anything. The fact is, they have to answer these questions. They have to figure these things out. And one thing that I have figured out to be wholly true across everybody is nobody knows the right way to do this. We're all figuring this out. We all do it a different way. And I like that. I like letting that inform my decisions and how I go about doing pricing. I promise if you ask the same person in a field how to price an object, you'll get, a different answer for every single person. And so let that inform it. Let that help you choose how, at the end of the day, you price your objects, and then just learn from your own experiences in that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as I always think about and say out loud as many times as I can, retail is fickle. Like there are metrics that tell us which way it's going and which way it's going to go, but they're based on big box environments, and that is not us. And it's a really tough thing to pin down.
When I was a student here, the head of the jewelry department gave a great class about how to price retail versus wholesale. Mm-hmm. And I took that information with me and I used that to inform pricing for years. But ever since I've been out, about a week leading up to this, I've just been asking a bunch of people what do you call your method of pricing? And some said retail and wholesale. But I also got time and material, product base, if you're working with an interior designer, if you're working with a gallery. I've never worked with a gallery before. I don't know how to price for a gallery, but learning how a person does now better informs how I might price this piece or that piece. Mm-hmm. And so there's so many perspectives and everybody's doing it a different way. Mm-hmm. Figure them all out.
Great segue to a conversation from a virtual guest. Have either of you tested different pricing models for different audiences who have different value perceptions? This goes back to the which markets are you selling at question. Classic models include modifying product features or offering discounts to some audiences. Have you used any other approaches?
If I'm doing conservation work for an institution, I have started by guessing, doing it the way that I would do it for grandma down the street with her cookbook. And yeah, when they said $250, yeah, no problem. Damn it. And I got advice from my employers and other people, especially in California, for example, advising me that, like, yeah, your hourly rate is about a third of what it should be. Okay, good to know. And so it was trial and error. And yeah, you know, again, that I guess comes back to also that community that you're fostering. You know, an institution has a lot more resources than your neighbor down the street. So it's a combination of knowing what work you want to take and also, you know, the community that you want to build. I don't want to undersell my product to an institution. I don't want to overcharge grandma down the street. And so I would say that there is, I guess really for me it just comes down to like a level of empathy and wanting to build that community and saying, I think University X can afford it, and thinking about that kind of ideal product that is impossible to sell, they'll probably buy it versus somebody down the street who I do want to make some concessions for and still give them a quality product at something at a price point that they can afford. So I guess for me it is still kind of vibes based, but
well, you're talking about tiers, and that is a methodology. Is, you know, it's tiered pricing.
It's still based on what I think a sustainable hourly rate is, but I'm certainly going to be more flexible with an individual and somebody who, you know, I kind of want to make a connection with than somebody who I'm just going to get past a W-9 from, you know.
Yeah.
I haven't done much experimenting with different structures at kind of the retail level, the oval boxes being the easiest example. But what I will do is I'll just make kind of blanket changes to certain percentages that I price, that I build into my price throughout the building process based on where these objects are being sold at the end of the line. Something that's important to understand is, depending on the venue, clients, people, patrons, they're coming in there with a price range in mind. They're coming in there knowing this is the range of products in this place. This is the range of amounts that I'm going to be spending money. And that absolutely goes to commissions and private sales, but those can be a bit more specific. But what I'm saying is I will make sure I communicate to whoever is running the venue that I am selling at, or other people selling at the venue, and I can get that feedback of what kind of price range are you working in, what price range are you working in, and then I can adjust my pricing based on that.
It's also depending on where you are selling the booth rental is significantly all over the place. Yep. So you can be at, I don't even know what it costs to have a booth at SOA, but I know, you know, Winter Market is, what is it, 95? 95 for two and a half days. Field and Supply in upstate New York, you're spending, you know, maybe $10,000-$20,000 for a booth. So your price point can be anywhere from a $25 object to a $6,000 coat, or a $20,000 piece of furniture.
It's gonna be some fancy boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just that's a really sticky thing. Yep. I think you just find your markets and stick to them and hold on. On value, when pricing something, how much does what you personally would pay for an object or service actually matter?
Very little. And this gets to a very personal place, I think. I grew up very rural, small, teeny tiny Midwest town, the kind of place where people just don't make luxury purchases or even higher end purchases of the objects they need. They buy very cheap because that's the best that they can do. And so when I first came to the school and I started learning about a lot of the prices that the people who were instructing me were talking about, I thought, that's not real. That's impossible. Well, the fact is I had to start to get my head around, well, the people where I come from, they're not the people I'm selling to anymore. I'm selling to different people. And so that's just the kind of thing I had to start to learn everything we're talking about here, how to price things, because I came from a place of being very ignorant to the idea of a lot of these prices. And that's not a bad thing. I want to emphasize that. I think I thought for a time it was. I think I had these biases in me to say it's wrong to be charging this much for these objects. That's not the case at all. It's absolutely right to be charging your worth. And as I said earlier, very often we don't even get to do that. But because of all that, no. What I would pay for something, that being said, nowadays it's probably different because I'm informed. I know what the work that we all make is worth. So that amount is probably different, but no, I typically don't factor my own thoughts in at all.
Yeah. What about you?
And it was very clear when you spent all that time making those boxes and they sold out in 20 minutes that there's a disconnect there.
Yeah.
You know, people see the work you do is magic to me. It doesn't matter what I would pay for book repair because I can do the book repair. I don't need to pay anybody to do that. It's not magic to me. I know what goes into it. But when I work with a craftsperson who's a specialist in what they do, and I now can see all of the time and the blood, sweat, and tears and the money that goes into being able to have those skills and present those skills so with such panache, with such ease.
All right.
No, seriously, it's a beautiful thing to see a craftsperson who has found a niche for themselves, and you are coming to that person because of their vision. You know, you're not pulling up craftsperson, X from, I've seen your work. I know that informs, my aesthetic and what I want to be a part of. And it's impossible for me to price that because I don't understand the magic that goes into that. So the same is true when I'm pricing work. It's strictly informed by what I know I need to make in order to be sustainable, because I understand that I wouldn't pay the same, because it's not magic to me, but it is magic when I see other experts doing their work.
Yeah. It's something that I've learned being here for almost 9 years is, and I'm a craftsperson, not to the extent that you all are trained in your specialty, but it's crystal clear now that the price is the price. There's no, I would never ask, so why is your pricing that? It's just, that's what you have determined it is, and that's what I'm going to pay. There's no question.
It's delightful to hear a craftsperson talk about the little details that they put into something that, it blows my mind. And to them it was like, oh yeah, that took me 15 minutes. That was just a part of the way I work. And all of those little things, those things that, make handwork are the things that you're really paying for, I think.
What's your best pro tip for students as they think about pricing their goods and services?
Ton of data points. Record everything. Pictures, write everything down on paper. Things like, it's one thing to understand how much a material costs. How long did it take you to get that material from a purchased thing broken down into a usable thing? All of the little things that you're probably not thinking about, the tape, the glue, the sandpaper, is it enough to consider? How quickly are you going through all those things? Are you just using a little bit, or are you using a lot? So keep tons of data points, as many data points as you can find, including your time and materials. And then lastly, ask everybody. Ask everybody how they're pricing. Know that nobody has the right answer, but everybody has good ideas on this stuff. And then the biggest thing that I try to express to people in our world, in the maker community, is remember that we are all pricing against each other. Never kind of forget that, never put that aside. And so it's very easy to sometimes get a real tunnel vision on, I made this object, this is what this object is worth. Are you pricing out another person in your field, or are you being competitive to another person in your field? Which maybe being competitive isn't always a bad thing, but we're all trying to do this together. We're all just trying to make a living at doing this. and it's tough, it's hard. And so on top of this notion of how do you price things, what do you price things? It's not a bad question to ask. It's not an ugly question. It's an okay question. And keep everybody else in mind. We're all trying to do this together.
We're all trying to do this together. Write that down. Write it all down. I would say communication falls into that. When you do get asked that question, like, why is this so expensive? Why are you charging me that much? It's easy to get defensive, but you should think about why you're charging that much and be willing to explain, yeah, it looks like one piece of tape, but it's actually going to take me 6 hours to remove that without lifting up all of the type that is very important to you. Yes, it's just a board off. But that board is informed by the entire structure of the book, and there's a reason why, in order for me to do not just a slapstick repair, to make something that's comprehensive and will last you for the rest of your life, that's why it costs this much. And I think it's important for us to understand why we're charging what we're charging, the work that we do. It helps us value what we're doing to put that all into words. And you're informing your audience, your clientele.
Yep.
And then when they say, oh yeah, it was way more than I thought, but I can tell that it was good work. That's gonna come back to you then for the next job that you get. So I would say communication is important in life, but definitely in craft.
That's so great point, is know why be able to explain in a compassionate way, not a defensive way, why your price point is what it is. That's really good. I will add on to that there's nothing wrong with being an artist and creative and wanting to make money. Let's just remember that the two can
Absolutely.
coexist. And it doesn't mean that you're in this for the money. I mean, we all know that that's not
Not real.
Nobody comes into this for the money, but the two should and can exist, and it's actually our jobs to keep perpetuating that thought and that idea. I'm going to talk about some closing thoughts on this Crafting a Business series, and this doesn't mean that you can't still send me your questions, but I just have some notes to say, as this is the last episode in this whole series on crafting a business. And I think some of the things that you all have said touch back to things we've heard from other participants. All of our guests this season gave us honest portrayals of the realities of creative enterprise. We heard trade and person-specific anecdotes, stories of very high and very low business moments. We learned how simple even the big serious things like taxes can be. We learned tips on collateral storage, workshop layout, buying a business, how to define a livelihood for ourselves, and so much more. But one thing rang loud throughout all of these 8 conversations, and you just brought it up very clearly, is community and peer support. Nurturing our craft and trade community and each other is, I'm pretty positive, is what ultimately leads to our success. Whether it's a business partnership, a phone call to a colleague in a pinch, or simply an extra set of hands to move furniture, we really all need each other in this environment. And I believe that beyond the incredible skills that you developed and honed here at NBSS, how you lift up and lean on your community is what will define these successes for us in our creative enterprise. You all here at NBSS are already so great at lifting up and leaning to each other, and so just keep it going. And that's like step 1 to success. And that's all I have to say on that.
We took a 8-hour flight to come here from California, and man, it just felt so good to be back at this school. It's cheesy, but this is home. This is, yeah.
I mean,
these people, this place.
Yeah, and can't you think of like how many moments in your professional career now have been either sent or, upward trajectoried by a moment you've had with someone in this community?
This was the start of the life I wanted to build. Like, yeah, in a very big way. I started in a different place and came here on, a whim and a dream, and it's been excellent so far.
Absolutely.
Cry. There's gonna be some tears.
No. I live with a North Bennett grad. I share a shop space with 2 other North Bennett grads. None of them did I actually school with during the time here. It was just that outward community. It was the fact that once you're a part of this, you're always a part of this, and you're a part of that broader community all the time. And so, yeah, this place is magic.
Mm-hmm. Even, I mean, yes, NBSS community, absolutely, but literally any part of the craft and trade community, like, we're talking to Sandy Weymouth last week, who just, or Matt Romick, who just recognized that they've just built these shops and they just need extra hands to literally lift something, or another brain to bounce an idea off of. So just every craft and trade person in your periphery, that's your community, and we take care of each other. Yeah. With that, I just want to thank you all, specifically thanks to Mitch and Kolin for joining us today. And thanks to everyone for staying with us this season, and take good care. See you.